Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Antonia, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have a special guest. I have Antonia. She is an integrative therapist who assists healers, seekers, and psychonauts to get ready for a wave of healing as our collective ancient traumas surface more rapidly on our path toward ascension. Her transformation started in 2006 when she discovered her capacity to dissolve lifetimes of pain in her own body through her personal journey inward. Now, Antonia's mission is to teach the alchemy of awareness, a transmutation of pain into love and dark into light. Welcome, Antonia. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful, Tanya.
So we're going to dive into awakening the alchemy of awareness, what that means, and how we can transmute pain into love. And so many of us are currently on a path toward learning to unlearn. I know I am, and this has been a difficult journey, so to speak. And so we are expanding our awareness of the traumas that we hold deep within our third dimensional bodies, so we can transmute those energies to heal on a multi-dimensional level. And so you help people become aware of their pain as a signal and an opportunity for growth and expansion. So can you talk a little bit more about what the alchemy of awareness is, and let's go into how we can start transmuting that pain into love?
Well, I it was only in the last few years that it really became clear, kind of communicated to me that how unaware we really are, and the power of truly seeing places that are so unseen in this dimension. There is so much that we don't see. We're really in an unaware, kind of clogged, congested, constipated reality.
It's funny. I told someone my heart chakra was constipated the other day. So that's really funny that you say that.
Exactly. And I think that because it's so unaware, we're unaware of how much we're unaware of. We really don't see it. And so I also say that our pain is, that sits in our body, really sits in a feeling alone and unseen and abandoned. Because from where I speak, and from, for example, from the histories of the Ayurvedas, it is repressed emotion. Mm-hmm. So repressed emotion is emotions that we've kind of stuffed down there and say, I can't deal with you yet. I don't know what to do with you. I'm just going to stuff you down there until I figure it out, or until my future parents or my children's know what to do with this, right? So they are also places of us that are sitting within us that are unaware. They're beyond awareness, wounds that we just don't have into our consciousness. So the mere act of just seeing them, going, I see you, I accept you, I love you, I know you're there, is like it's an act of unabandoning. Welcome to the whole. And that raises the frequency from I'm an abandoned, left alone, rejected little piece into I'm seen, I'm accepted, I'm loved. And that raising of frequency alone just allows consciousness to flow. And
it's like, and I've talked about this on previous shows, how I sat down and had a conversation with my anxiety like it was a separate person. It was like, and I think that's what we need to do with our pain. We need to just sit down with it and say, okay, I see you. I hear you. What are you telling me? Where are you coming from? And so, I know that you worked through your own pain and your own struggle to get to this point. And so, can you share a little bit about your own healing process and how you dismantled and dissolved the pain in your life?
Yeah, it's still going on strong.
Yeah. And I'm right there with you. I think that it just keeps coming up, like we get sifted bigger, and then it raises to the surface. Yes.
And then the next level, and then it just gets more harrowing and more harrowing. But this started about 2006, and it was spontaneous. Just a lot of energy. I mean, I came right out of academia. I had no idea what was going on. I came from community health and sort of a political activism. And then suddenly in my head, I'm talking about energies and meditations and sort of compulsive decision-making. Things were coming at me, the whole synchronicities kind of shtick. But what happened within a few months was almost on a daily basis, if I'd arrive home from work and then suddenly just energy would start to flow and suffering would just rip out of my own body. things that were never part of my life, or probably in the beginning it was, and then gradually over years and years, it was just pain and experiences that could never have happened in this lifetime. And it's emotional pain, it's physical pain, it's energetic pain, of course,
all the above. Yeah.
Clearing of mental pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just kept going and flowing and flowing and flowing. And my physical body would change. Of course, your thought process change, your whole perceptions change from something that's more fear-based, from something that's more shame-based, rage-based. And suddenly, you know, through the releasing, which is really the transforming, which is really the not believing in all of the pain, you get a clearer idea of what's actually happening in here. So, and what's actually happening is quite gorgeous.
It's screaming to be heard and to be seen.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. Yeah. And once the pain is seen and heard, really seen, which is brought into consciousness, suddenly everything starts to get a little bit lighter and clearer and more loving.
Yeah. And so, you know, how did you do that? How did you start? I mean, I know for me, I've shared on my show several times my battle with pain. When I I took a huge quantum leap. I quit my third dimensional job, started a business, moved across the country. And within 3 months, I was bedridden for about 4 to 5 months in such agonizing pain where my back, I called it locked in syndrome because I was so locked in. It was like my pain, my nervous system was telling me, you're not going to just be distracted anymore. It's time to focus on me. And so I know how I handled that, and I've shared it on my show, but I'd love to hear your story on how you actually handled that. How did you get to a point of recognizing that it was time to face the pain and the suffering?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, when this started to happen, I was in great shape. Like there wasn't the pain happened.
I was doing the work.
So, and the pain started to happen when there was so much energy moving through and the body started to get congested. And where I am in the planet right now, it's a very dense place. So it's really heavy and it sticks. So I went through horrific injuries. Like I lost the use of my arm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was like, you know, from head to knee, I woke up, I couldn't move. I had to sleep on my back for months.
Oh God, I know how you feel. Oh
yeah, it's awful.
It was the way I explained it was Niagara Falls going through a straw. That's how the energy felt.
I say that today. Molasses going through a straw, same thing. Yeah. It's just, yeah. So I had to figure out, and with very little help, because I was really still in a lot of shame going, you know, I can't tell people what's going on here. They're going to think I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. But I had to figure out that in order to allow the pain to move through, I had to move a lot, which means I had to get heat moving through my body. I had to metabolize the stuck stuff. So I had to keep moving. So I'm the hot yoga, kayaking, elliptical, boxing kind of regime up here in order to keep things moving.
Yeah. And that's powerful because I had a guest on the show talk about movement medicine and how movement is, when we have that energy, especially, I think for me, mine was really based in the sacrum, which is right at the tailbone. I think it was my Kundalini or my Shakti Shiva. It was just firing, and I couldn't get it to move past my sacral chakra. It was so stuck. And you know, I anything I could do I was in so much pain. You lost your arms, I lost my legs. It was like I was crawling to the bathroom just to go to the bathroom to shower. It was terrible. And I would do everything I could just to get on the ground, to do child's pose, just to sit and maybe do some movement. And I was laying in bed muscle testing, like, okay, what is this? Can I move it? Can I move it? But it was hard for me to do the actual movement medicine at that time because I was so locked in. And so, you know, what advice do you have for people who can't maybe do the movement, that are so stuck, to get at least the energy to get moving and to shift in a way that maybe they can't walk, or maybe they can't move?
I have my emergency Thai massage therapist. I can't move today. Please book me in tomorrow. He's like, I'm here. And then I go in, I lay on the floor, and she just literally stretches and I scream, and she stretches and I scream, and she stretches and I wail and yell, and she's very amused. And so, because she kind of gets it, but I get help. I get a lot of help.
Yes.
And I don't stay up here. I go to places like, you the Pacific Ocean in Mexico, where things move a bit more easily. I get more jammed down in the sacrum down there because there's so much energy that moves around the ocean, but the rest of it starts to move a little bit more easily. So I head down for a few months.
Yeah, that's great. I think if you can get to a masseuse, I went to someone that did visceral manipulation. It's actually like energy healing meets massage meets science. I mean, it's actually really amazing. And she did wonders for me, and she was able to get in there and release that psoas, where that's our emotional seat.
Psoas.
Yes.
My right psoas is me, and the psoas, I'm trying to fall in love with my psoas.
I know it.
The pain.
That psoas holds a lot of trauma in it.
So much.
Yes.
So much. Crippled, once again, crawling, can't walk down the stairs from ankle up until upper hip. It's just stuck and jammed and congested, and the psoas is collapsing constantly.
It is. And so I think a lot of it too, it's our healing journey of learning the parts of the body, learning the meridians, learning chakras, learning energy, learning how it all, like you said, that physical, emotional, mental, spiritual aspects. It's like layers of an onion. And so you talk about that bringing awareness to our pain is to integrate our hidden suffering into the greater whole. And so I want to talk about that as well, because awakening from a state of separation is also releasing some of that intergenerational and collective trauma from the third dimension. And so can you talk a little bit about what that relationship is between the pain and the trauma and the state of separation? Because I think that's really important as well, because obviously you and I, we didn't have the same experience, but obviously there's some mirror aspects to what we went through. And I think many people out there, when they start awakening to this, are going to have this flood of energy come through, and they're going to be like, how do I get out of this? And hopefully they'll find this video, this episode, where they can sit there and say, okay, now I actually have a grasp on what's going on.
I think that's a big question, but let me chip through it a bit. So number one is we are, from a psychotherapeutic perspective, I would say that the wounds that we're holding within our body are all rooted in the deep wound of abandonment.
Yes, I agree.
All alone. Nobody sees me. Nobody loves me. And it makes sense because we've been abandoning each other in horrific ways for thousands of years, right? Raping and pillaging is a form of abandonment, because if they really saw me, they couldn't rape and pillage me, right? So there's an enormous amount of abandonment, layers and layers and layers of, if you don't see me, it is a very dangerous reality. Please see me, approve of me, like me, love me. Otherwise, this is very dangerous. So if we recognize that we are holding layers and layers and layers of abandonment, each one of those wounds saying, I'm all alone in here, somebody see me, then that aloneness itself is a reflection of the state of separation in our bodies. I'm alone, nobody sees me, I'm different from everybody else, I'm all alone in the corner, and this is a very dangerous place to be. So it's lots and lots of intergenerational alarm bells going, I'm all alone, it's very dangerous, and now I have to be hypervigilant all the time, all my life, in order to try and stay safe. But the truth is that especially in places where you and I live, it's really quite safe. We're okay now. So what we need to do is to go into our wounds, to see them with lots of help, lots of meditation, lots of high frequencies, to see them, love them, and never believe them.
Yeah. And it's almost like I got, kind of came through to me that the pain is what feels abandoned. The pain is saying, you don't see me, take a look at me, please pay attention to me. I want to be transmuted. So it's that, it could be that inner child, but it's also each aspect of the emotion. The emotion wants to be seen. And the moment you shift from being unconsciously aware of that to being consciously aware of that is when you can transmute that energy. And
exactly. And conscious awareness comes with, oh, I see you story from the past. I see you. Of course you're there. And of course you're inhabiting my body. I come from thousands of years of humans terrorizing each other. Now that I see you're there, and now I understand that you're not a reflection of the present moment, because 99.999% of the time, the present moment is just fine in these very privileged parts of the world. Now that I see that all this fear, shame, and rage, and guilt, grief, and disgust is probably from the last many thousands of years of humans' experience in this reality, in this dimension, now I can really sit here and be with you without having to avoid, deny, and distract. I can go in, I can get a little uncomfortable because I know this is not what's happening. And that is a bigger state of seeing, really seeing, turning right into it from a place of trust and love and knowing this is not what's happening right now. These are just old imprints, programs that now I'm here to love right into the collective.
Yeah, it's recognizing that old story and then reframing it, reprogramming it. And so why do you think many of us, I mean, and I was, I did this too. Why do you think we sit in the pain? Why do we feel like the pain, we don't let it go? We don't want to look at it. We don't want to transmute it. Why do we do that?
Yeah, that's the state of being asleep. And I think that's, the agenda, and some would call it the viral condition of the ego as a virus, or the pain body as a virus. And it's so deep, and so it's taken on such, its agenda is so all encompassing, or it has been. It believes that if we let go of the fear, shame, and rage, that suddenly we're going to be sideswiped, but we're going to be left, unguarded when the next attack comes. So you need to keep that fear and that vigilance alive so that you're ready for the next hit. Do not let go of your shame, because what if they actually see you and then don't like you and find out you're not worth it? So you've got to keep that shame in place. You have to maintain that rage. Otherwise, somebody's going to come by and they're going to walk all over you. So you need to keep that rage to protect you. So it's very, very convincing, seductive, and very camouflage, this pain, and telling us that it has to be here. This is the only way. And you need us to survive.
Ooh, that's powerful. And so, for those of you out there, there is frequencies to each of these emotions. So when we're talking about shame, guilt, pain, suffering, fear, hate, whatever, rage, those are lower, denser frequencies that really anchor us into that third dimensional aspect, right? And so as we begin to shed away those layers of emotions, and when we talk about expanding our frequency, raising our vibration, really, we're just kind of releasing those unprocessed emotions that are anchoring us. Literally, I think of like a hot air balloon being tethered. It's like the balloon can only go so far until they release the tether to allow it to lift up, to ascend, right? And so until we can really recognize those more denser, and not saying that that these emotions are bad, they're there to teach us something, right? It's just they've got a heavier frequency, a more denser vibration to them.
But then can imagine how much consciousness, awareness, energy, and love you have to generate to get in there, right? So it really, I'm always like, oh, this one's going to be bad, but I can't wait to get the other side, because on the other side, it's going to be glorious, right? The opening is going to be huge. So let's dance. Let's do this, right?
Yeah. It's like, when you're having a child, it's like, oh, I'm in the throes of labor. And then you're like, this is hard. This is painful. But once you, birth that child and you look in the child's eyes, whoo, you're like, okay, but this is the reward. And I think that's what many of us are going through. But when you're in the throes of the pain, I mean, and I even commented on my show the other day, I was a college athlete. I was always an upbeat person. But when I went through this such severe pain, I told my dad, I know why people commit suicide, because I wanted out. I just wanted out. And that was not my rational thought, and I could see where when you're in such that deep, heavy state, how you can't see the light, and you don't feel like you can get to the other side. And so that can be really hard on us. But just know, you and I went through some significant pain, and here we are. We're talking about it. We're on the other side. And is there any advice you can share for people who are in the throes of the pain right now?
Well, I think you just gave it, which is, I think there's a number of things I'm trying to do, which is shame bust, right? So the more that shame loves the dark. So the more we talk about it, and the more we go, yes, that pain is there, but you're not alone in it. And I know it's hard to believe, it's not real, but it's not. And I know it's difficult to understand, but really when you get to the other side of this, it's going to be amazing. And pain loves to be alone. So get connected and keep listening and keep talking and keep going forward, because there is another side to it, right? I think we just need to keep bringing it out in the open. I think that that's what this is all about. These conversations, people writing more about this, this is to make sure that we penetrate light into these really dark hidden places where people are literally contracted in their shame and in their fear. And we need to try and open them up a bit more.
Which we're seeing on a collective level right now, a lot of things coming to this, especially that there's movies out now with a lot of the sex trafficking coming out, which I've known about for many, 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 many years. So it's really awesome that the collective, it's starting to come out. But like you said, we've got to shine light on these dark areas. It may not be easy to see that. It may be really hard. But from a an individual level, we're handling our pain, but we're also being presented with pain from a collective level as well. And it's hard. It's not hard to go through, to see that. And so, I worked in the healthcare industry for more than 15 years, assisting grieving families, experiencing some of the most terrible trauma that anyone can experience. And I actually began to take on people's pain. I didn't really know that I was doing this at the time. I didn't really understand what was going on. And later once I learned how to transmute my pain, I began to transmute the pain of others just being in their presence. It was kind of part of my mastery to learning being an empath. And so, what happens when we start to take on the pain of others, and how can we transmute that?
I'm not an expert at this one, I have to tell you. I think there's a lot of people who are better equipped to discuss forms of protection and how to work with other people's pain, because the way I currently live is I just take it on, and there is no boundaries. I've been working on boundaries energetically for a long time. That's just not how I operate. I walk in a room and it's like I hoover everything up.
Yeah.
And when I'm down south in the ocean, I can hoover everything up and everything's just fine. Up here, it's a bit more difficult. So for me, my answer is I've got to move. But for others, I think
hey, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. And I think for me, it's almost like how you said, creating, focusing your awareness on the pain. I focus my awareness on, is this mine or is this someone else's that maybe I've picked up? And then I have a conversation with it. Like, okay, is this meant for me to assist this person? And, from a higher self standpoint. And if it's not, then I'm going to lovingly return to sender and have them work through this pain on their own. And so, but there was a time every grieving family I worked with, I was like the collector. I was like, here, let me throw it I'll throw your pain in my backpack. I can handle it, and then, but I was doing this unconsciously. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I got to a point where I couldn't move. I was in so much pain and suffering from not only my own pain that I wasn't dealing with, but from stuffing down all the pain from all these families. And so I think, just using the tips and tools that you just shared with us about handling our own pain, I think can be very instrumental in us also handling the pain of others when we as empaths come in contact with that, and also giving ourselves permission. We don't have to carry the pain of others. And, as you begin to master it, like me, I've gotten to a point where I can recognize it really fast. Is it mine or someone else's? And then I can kind of transmute it really quickly if it's meant to.
I think also what I like to tell people is to get back in your own reality. Like, you got enough to work on in your own being, and you working on your own being alone is going to assist the collective.
Yes.
So get back in. And the more you change your focus to, I'm going to honor everybody their path, because everybody here is on a most spectacular journey. They really are quite heroic in walking this really uncomfortable space. But you get back into you, focus on you, learn how to see your pain, and learn that everything is going exactly as it needs to. You're doing more for everybody than you think you are.
Absolutely. It's like that ripple effect that goes out. And so, I want to talk about that too. How does the chaos of pain move us away from expanding our consciousness? I know for me, it was like when I was in the throes of pain, I didn't care about anything else. It was really hard to focus on something else because the pain was so up front and center in my face.
Yeah. And I think that is the nature of pain itself. Which is, don't see anything else, only see me. That's what pain asks, right? Which is why you can see when there's self-absorbed behaviors, selfish behaviors, it's just pain saying, it's just, and a larger concentration of pain saying, I don't have it in me to go look at you. There's just so much in here. I'm just, grasping to try and manage this. If we're on this path and we recognize that, get some help. You got to pull in as much as you can. You got to get some other higher frequencies in there. Go to higher places that have higher frequencies, such as the ocean or the mountains, or, off to Sedona you go, in order to try and move some of this through. You need to get some help.
Yeah, and that's very valuable, because I think a lot of us too, at least even for me, it's like, oh, I can heal myself from within. And I got so stubborn with that, it wasn't working for me. And so that's when I went to a visceral manipulation therapist, and she immediately knew what to do. And I could feel the energy move. And I said, how did you do that? And I was doing very similar things. I just couldn't make it happen. And she said, Tanya, I acted as a fulcrum for you. You had a blind spot. You weren't seeing where your pain was stuck, and I helped you through that.
Because ego doesn't want us to see our pain. And so I'm not going to count on my own mind, which is, often connected to the pain stories, to tell me what to do, especially when I'm uncomfortable. When I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to hand it over to somebody here who's not invested and you help me see, because right now I can't see. So I think it's really, really, and there's, versus 2006, like, I kind of feel like I came out of a hole for the last 16 years. There's so much going on, and there's so much light, and people are bringing in so many different, delivery mechanisms of consciousness and love, that, like, find your community. There's so much out there. Help somebody see, get some help for you to see.
Absolutely. And I think it's a nice balance, because I think there's people, I'll get clients that they won't do the inner work. They want me to fix it for them, So I do feel like there's a balance between doing your own inner work and then recognizing or discerning when it's time to reach out for some help, and just having that fine balance there.
I think it's a absolutely fabulous reflection that we need to go through, because I don't think we can walk in and ask for help without owning it all in the first place.
Yes.
You're just acting sort of as an extension of me. This is my intention. You're a reflection of my intention for more love, but I'm not handing over the power of my own expansion to anybody or anything. It's all my own. All my pain and all my expansion is me.
Yes, and taking accountability for that. And so I want to talk a little bit about ancestral trauma, and you talk about dismantling dimensions and how our ancestral trauma can have something to do with that. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, I think we store those imprints through our coding as humans. Mm-hmm. So I think all of that fear, shame, and rage, the terror, and we haven't had a chance to resolve it for thousands of years, because it hasn't been safe for thousands of years. So it gets stuffed away and handed down through generations and generations. And now here, which is a lovely coincidence, of course it's not, that when all this light's coming in, we're chock-a-block filled with our, thousands of years of ancestors torturing each other, loads and loads of fear that I don't think we're really aware of, but we have all of this energy now that's coming in that's going to allow us to start shaving off the layers and layers and layers, especially those of us who've been around here for a long, long time, right?
Old souls, yeah.
Yes, that we can now really rewrite history in a way, right? And start releasing all of a lot of the pain that we have been experiencing for millennia.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tough, because, many people want to be out of the third dimension, but we came here for a reason. We signed up to come here to transmute this, to move ourselves through it. I mean, I can see myself, raising my hand saying, heck yeah, I want to transmute my ancestral trauma. Then you get here and you're like, what did I sign up for?
How do I get out?
I'm like, I got 80 years of it? Like,
exactly. Yeah. Which is why I ask people to do for here, I'm trying to change the relationship to pain and go, people, which I also see is, woohoo, let's head on up. But I'm saying, but you got to look down first.
Yes.
And clean your
tether. You're tethered. Yeah, you're like, exactly. And your balloon can only go so far. You've got to release that tether. And I see this with some of my clients I work with. They're half anchored in third dimension and half anchored in the higher frequencies. And then they're wondering why they feel stuck. And I'm like, all right, we got to pull you back into your body, and we've got to really look at this story that you have been telling yourself. And they're like, really? I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, we've got to do that. And you're going to feel better after we release this, but we've got to turn and face that pain. Absolutely.
Which is why I think these conversations are so important, because we have really hefty infrastructures of distraction in North America and in other parts of the planet, really hefty infrastructures of avoidance.
Yes.
Where we just get lost and buried in so many things. So to have those conversations and go, you need to spend some time to go start making love with your pain. You need to go look, because this is for you, and it's very uncomfortable. And there are more and more of us who are going to help you, show you how to see it, and then show you how and help you move it. But if you don't look, you're always going to be there. It'll hold you back and you won't even recognize it.
Yeah. And so, I think, you kind of mentioned that it's so important for us to be in the present moment when we are dealing with this, because, many want to look to it's tough because we do have to go to the past a little bit to be able to clear it, but we don't want to sit in the past. We don't want to park ourselves there. And, because that's where we're sitting in the suffering and the pain. It's like, we want to be in that present moment to be able to observe, okay, where did this pain begin? Is it mine? Is it generational? How far back does it go? Let's move it through. And then, also be sitting in the now moment, but also having the idea of, how do I want to create where I'm going? I don't want to be sitting here in this pain as I move forward. And, so it's like this fine dance. It really is, when you get to that point of being able to
emerging.
Kind of search. Yeah.
There's a merging between, I need to, because I work with the feelings, right? The feelings are the root of it, the repressed emotions. So going and remembering past life trauma, childhood trauma is really about, how do I bring the feeling that was stuck there to the surface, so I can have the feeling there and bring the energy of present moment in with it and have them merge. And that's how transmutation happens.
And that alchemy happens.
Need to come together. The feeling of pain, the feeling of fear with the feeling of perfect safety need to merge. And that's when the transmutation happens, and it literally transforms into a higher frequency.
Yeah, because it's like you might be running a program of fear, but in the now moment, you're safe, and you're sitting somewhere where you're safe. And that's so important, because that unconscious program of fear needs to be recognized in the now moment where you feel safe, and then they can alchemize. And so you're an author, right? So can you talk a little bit about your upcoming book? How exciting.
We kind of just did talk about the upcoming book. I mean, a lot of it is, it's called Dismantling the Third Dimension, Transforming Our Trauma on the Road from Tribe to Collective. So it is inviting people to shift their relationship with pain. How do we make friends with our suffering? Recognizing that most of the time, especially in this part of the planet, that it's not happening, that this is all past imprints. And so how do we step into it with all of the wonderful healing tools and instruments and energies that we have available to us, so that we can use that for our evolution, which is our expansion. We can move from a contracted pain state, which is the third dimension, and bring in the expanding energies, which help our own expansion, which help the expansion of the collective.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just that bringing in more light. And there's got to be some sort of, there's always balance within the universe. So there's always, good versus evil, light versus dark, there's always that, but it's coming in to the harmonization of it, the balance of it. And, because if we're all light, there's got to be dark to balance it out, and I think that's what's tough in the beginning, is we want to fill ourselves with so much light, but we also have to deal with our shadow too, and well, that can be really tough,
right? I think that's we know more and more that those shadows are there to feed us. That's the creative process. We're coming here into this really constipated place to start to get very creative, very resourceful on how to turn that into connection, right? Like, how am I going to do this? That's what this is. That's how I personally see it, is, this is going to be a tough nut. Well, I can't wait to figure out how to get in there and turn that into wisdom, because there's wisdom trapped in there. Yes. I've got to find how to get the energy in there, kind of energy, intensity of energy, to get in there and turn that into, I get it, holy mackerel, and then you explode into the next reality.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful. So can you share a little bit with us about some of the other services that you provide?
Well, I'm a psychotherapist, so I work in this sort of metaphysical psychotherapeutic, which is really what the foundation of the book is. How do we walk this metaphysical journey, but in a framework, a therapeutic framework of self-care and boundaries and ownership. These are the things that we need to take care of this vessel as we're going through this. So that's essentially how I work with my clients, is for those who are on this path, and not all of them are, is how do we see, and then how do we take care of ourselves when we're going into those shadow dark parts of ourselves. So I do it one-on-one, although probably not till 2024 can I take on new people, but also retreats, right? I love, bringing people and sharing the energy, both silent retreats and plant medicine integration retreats.
That's
so
wonderful.
I do both of those.
Yeah, and I just had my show this week was on plant medicine. We just talked about that too.
Yeah, I
so
saw.
the power of that. And so,
Powerful.
what's your website? How can people find you?
So I'm on www.tribetocollective.com, and you can find the book on there, also on Amazon, Dismantling Their Dimension. There's also some modules there, which are just, some stuff I was channeling and then put it on video to help activate more activations, more enabling people to see the pain, and more sort of facilitating the path. So same principles, right? This is a metaphysical journey. How do we see all the drama that's happening so that we can now change our relationship to it and therefore start to transform it? So there's video modules, podcasts, which is just reflections. All of that's on tribetocollective.com.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. Well, do you think there's anything else that we need to add to the show? Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you feel would be of benefit to those listening today?
Tanya, you're just a great host. We got through so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's just lovely.
I know. I feel like, when I was putting the show together, I thought, wow, I have more questions on this show than I've probably ever had, but I knew that the energy would flow the way that it was meant to flow. And I feel that. And so I just want to, kind of say, for those of you out there who might be in pain right now, just know that you're not alone. Tony and I came together to create this show because we wanted to share our personal journeys through this and to let you know that there is light at the end of that dark tunnel, and we can work together to transmute it as well. So thank you so much for all that you're doing and all the energy that you're putting out into the world, because I know it's not easy. It's not easy to be an author. It's not easy to be a podcast host. It's not easy to assist people through their trauma and through their pain. And so I really thank you so much for all that you're doing for the collective.
Oh, Tanya, I'm so grateful. Thank you very much for this opportunity to connect. It's just lovely.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.